Hello gang, Tattooed Biker here with you, and tonight I've got 4 real reports of Dogman or cryptid canines from viewers. From Pennsylvania all the way to South Wales in the UK. Now keep in mind these are real stories from real people, so if this is the kind of content that you're looking for without any AI voices or mid-roll ads, go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Then grab your gear and let's ride to Dogman country. Number 1. Dear Tattooed Biker, this occurred in 1992 when I was in my senior year of high school. I was cruising around at night in a small area where people used to go four-wheeling, though it's now a developed area. This is in East Cheyenne, between the area known as Sun Valley and Lincoln Valley Auto Salvage. I was driving in an easterly direction on a dirt road, and I saw some kind of wolf-like creature in my headlights, approximately 60 yards in front of me. My first thought was coyote, but it wasn't. It seriously looked like a werewolf from the movies. I only saw it for maybe 5 or 6 seconds. This thing glanced halfway at me, and my lights reflected on its eyes, which were a bright yellow glow, as it ran off over a hill. Honestly, it scared the crap out of me. I rolled up both windows, locked my doors, and started turning my truck to see if I could catch it on the headlights again. I didn't see it again, and I wasn't about to go out any further. Like I said, I was scared, but curious. I ended up turning around to the nearest neighborhood, by a couple street lamps, unlocked my door, bailed out, and immediately scrambled to the ground to look under my truck. Much like bailing off your bed as a kid, leaping halfway across the room and jumping down to look under the bed just to prove that there's nothing really there. I still laugh about it. I had to look crazy to anyone in that neighborhood who happened to see me. So to best describe what it was like a standing wolf. But it was like a movie werewolf. If it had stood up completely straight, it would have been about 8 feet tall. It wasn't completely covered with hair, if any at all. I remember it had a dog-like face, with cheek tufts and shorter, pointy ears, as well as a snout like a dog. Its arms were like an orangutan, and its hind legs were shorter than a human's. Like I said, like a movie werewolf, except it wasn't all huge in the shoulders and neck like you see in most of the films. Thanks for taking the time to read this email. Signed, Nick. Number 2. Hey TB, this happened back in early December of 2011. My son and I had an appointment with a real estate lawyer in Gordon, Pennsylvania. We got off from doing a side job in St. Clair and took the back road through Hectorville to get on High Ridge Park Road. High Ridge Road becomes Gordon Mountain Road once you go past the I-81 interchange, exit 119. It was getting dark, an early dusk hour, and I had the headlights on. We were about a half mile past the interchange when this huge wolf-like creature crossed a 2-lane highway from right to left. And when I say huge, it was almost the full length of the travel lane, about 8 feet. This creature was about 30 yards in front of us, and I said to my son, "Wow, that's the biggest wolf I've ever seen." My son just had this shocked look on his face. Unfortunately, to this day, he refuses to even acknowledge it. As far as the description, this thing was dark gray in color, with a wolf-like head, a huge, muscular upper torso, and a narrow waist. The limbs were unusually long. All 4 limbs were large and muscular. Its appearance was somehow just all wrong, like its front legs were much longer than its hind legs. And the way it moved. It took 3 lopes to cross the highway, and the way it loped was odd. It had this weird and stiff-legged movement. The area around exit 119 has had a few strange occurrences that I've heard people talk about, such as vehicles shutting down, the sighting of a female apparition, and glowing blue eyes near the area where I saw this creature. I'm not sure if they're related or not, but I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks. Signed, Thomas. Number 3. Dear Biker, I saw something that put a big scare into me. I'm going to describe it, but I'm not sure you'll believe me. But I'm certain about what I saw that day. This happened back in August 2009 as I was driving to my husband's place of employment. We live in Gillum, Manitoba, and he's an electrician for one of the generating stations on the river. This was close to 3 p.m. I had just turned off one of the residential roads near my home, heading east on PR 280. About a half mile after my turn, I caught a glimpse of something tall moving through the trees to my right. Then suddenly, it jumped onto the shoulder of the road and stood there as I drove by. I looked in the mirror and saw it quickly cross the road to the other side. I picked up speed and I didn't stop until I reached the station. I had chills all over. I got a pretty decent look at it. It had a large wolf's head, but it was standing upright on legs, which looked man-like. I didn't see any arms as I passed by, but I did see arms swaying back and forth when I looked in the mirror as it was crossing the road. The coloring of the head and body hair was charcoal with darker patches. If it was an actual gray wolf, then it was the largest one that I've ever heard of. I thought that someone was playing tricks, but that wouldn't make sense, since it was during the hunting season. I did tell my husband, who later checked the area where I saw it. He said that there were reports of a very large wolf along the river a few years before, but he hadn't heard anything beyond that. I still don't really know if he believes me. I also said something to my uncle through marriage, who's a Chippewa. My uncle told me that it wasn't a wolf, and that I have to forget about it. He then recited some words under his breath and told me to never mention it again. That all kind of freaked me out. Since it was 5 years ago, I haven't thought too much of it until I read a newspaper article about the Dogman and sightings that people have had in other locations. That's how I found you online. I was looking stuff up on YouTube. I have a few questions if you would consider emailing me. Thank you. Signed, Anonymous. A quick narrator's note here. I contacted the witness by email. She wanted to know what I thought of the sightings in the newspaper and on the internet. She agreed to have her experience published, though personal information was to be removed. She also stated that the being was about 8 feet tall with a huge wide head. Now, I tend to be a bit more cautious with bipedal canine reports. To be frank, there have been several that I've received that didn't quite pass the smell test, if you know what I'm saying. This can happen with any unexplained phenomena submission, but it seems to be more prevalent when the subject is a cryptid canine for whatever reason. But that being said, I truly think that she witnessed some form of cryptid or supernatural creature in this particular case. Number 4. Hey Biker, first time submitting and the first time I've ever told this story except to my sister, who kind of blew me off. I live in South Wales, UK. Now admittedly, we aren't really known for our cryptids. We're more known for ghosts that I really don't believe in. I'm 30 years old, by the way. I live in a remote area. In the past, I've hunted and eaten rabbits, though I no longer do this as, for some reason, I can't seem to hurt animals anymore. The largest native animal that we have here is the red deer. But for many years, there's been news articles about large cats in our area, possibly pumas or panthers, that had grown too large for their owners. I live in an area close to Tonmar, South Wales, and there's a creature sighted frequently called the the beast of Tom Wire. A police officer that was a close friend of my family told about an encounter with said beast. However, the creature I encountered that day when I was 11 years old was neither a large cat or a red deer. I had been playing with my cousins, as children who lived in the valley. Exploring the trees, forests, rivers, and valleys was kind of the norm for us. My cousin, who lived barely 2 kilometers from my house, had asked me to go for a walk and go exploring. We were going to do this as our parents, who are related in some distant way, sat, spoke, ate, and had tea. Now my cousin was a lot thinner and more agile than me. While exploring the forest, barely a kilometer from his home, I had lost sight of him rather quickly. Now I'm not sure what made me turn to my right. I didn't hear a sound, and I didn't catch any glimpse of anything in the corner of my eye, but for some reason I felt compelled to turn, and I looked. And right there in the tree line, maybe only 8 meters from me, there was this creature that I can only describe as a dog that was bipedal. Werewolf isn't quite the word. This was, sure as day, a dog. It was just leaning against a tree, using one paw to steady itself. As I was looking at it, we became aware of one another. The creature pushed off from the tree and then stood there, still on 2 legs in a way that was terrifying and threatening at the same time. It was a stance that I knew immediately as aggressive, although I can't really say why. Suddenly, to me, at that moment, it was run away or die. Even at 11 years old, I was sure of that. So I ran, with tears streaming, all the way back to my cousin's house. When my younger cousins returned, they scolded me for letting my imagination get the better of me. Now I know what I saw that day. Like I said, I'm 30 years old now. And I know, as sure as anything, that I'll never forget the sheer terror and helplessness that I felt in the presence of that creature for the rest of my life. This world is a scary place, and don't ever underestimate it. Signed, Charlie. And there you have it. All the true cryptid canine and dogman encounter stories that I have for you tonight. So, what did you think about these? I'm excited to read your comments down below, but please, keep it respectful for the witnesses who may read them. After all, it takes a lot of courage to share personal experiences like these. And if you've had an experience that you'd like to share, just send it to the email in the description of this video, and your story may wind up in a future episode. So anyways, thanks so much for riding with me tonight. I really appreciate you. And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker, out.